The Rothschild family has controlled wealth for over 250 years. The Rockefellers have maintained their fortune for 150 years. The DuPont dynasty still generates billions today. But here's what they don't want you to know. While 90% of wealthy families lose everything by the third generation, these families keep getting richer through every economic crisis, every market crash, every political upheaval. They've designed a system that ensures wealth flows to them, regardless of what happens to everyone else. Today, I'm exposing the 7 habits they use that you'll never hear from any financial advisor, wealth guru, or mainstream source. Because if everyone knew these secrets, their entire wealth concentration system would collapse. Look, this isn't about some get-rich-quick cryptocurrency scheme or day trading nonsense they're selling you online. This is about understanding how real generational wealth operates, how families like the Astors, Vanderbilts, and Morgans have maintained power for centuries while 99% of people struggle paycheck to paycheck. The statistics are devastating. According to the Williams Group's 20-year study of 3,200 families, 70% of wealthy families lose their wealth by the second generation. 90% have lost it all by the third generation. But old money families, they've been accumulating wealth for 200, 300, even 400 years. They know something the rest of us don't. The $84 trillion wealth transfer they're positioning for. Here's the number that should terrify you. $84 trillion. That's how much wealth will transfer from baby boomers to their heirs over the next 20 years. But this isn't going to be distributed evenly. The families who understand these 7 habits are positioning themselves to capture the majority of this transfer. Habit number 1, they never actually own anything. This is the foundational secret that destroys everything you think you know about building wealth. The wealthiest families in America don't actually own their billions. Everything is held in perpetual trusts, foundations, and corporate structures. When Sam Walton died in 1992, his personal estate was worth about $100,000. But the family trusts he established, those contained billions in Walmart stock. Today, the Walton family controls over $230 billion through these trust structures. Here's why this matters. When you own assets personally, you're vulnerable. Lawsuits can seize them. Divorce can split them. Death triggers massive estate taxes, up to 40% of everything you've built. But when assets are held in properly structured trusts, they're protected. The trust owns the assets. The family controls the trust. The Rockefeller family has been using this strategy since 1882. These trusts have survived 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and countless crises. Personal ownership dies with the person. Trust ownership can last forever. These trusts don't just preserve wealth, they multiply it. Because the trust never dies, it never pays estate taxes. Because it operates across multiple jurisdictions, it can optimize taxes legally. The system accumulates wealth automatically, generation after generation. Habit number 2, they buy assets that produce other assets. Old money families don't buy things. They buy things that buy other things. This is completely different from how 99% of people think about wealth. The Rockefellers didn't just buy oil companies. They bought oil companies that generated cash flow to buy banks, which generated cash flow to buy railroads, which generated cash flow to buy more businesses. Each asset acquisition was designed to generate capital for the next acquisition. In 1863, John D. Rockefeller invested $4,000 in his first oil refinery. By 1870, that refinery was generating $1 million annually. Instead of spending that money, he used every dollar to buy competing refineries. By 1880, Standard Oil controlled 90% of U.S. oil refining and was generating $50 million annually. He never stopped reinvesting. Every dollar of profit became capital for the next acquisition. 1 asset became 2, 2 became 4, 4 became 8. Exponential growth through systematic reinvestment. The Rothschilds perfected this earlier. Banking profits bought government bonds. Bond profits bought mining companies. Mining profits bought railroads. Each investment was chosen for its ability to generate capital for the next strategic acquisition. Today, old money families use existing assets as collateral for loans, then use loan proceeds to buy more assets. The original assets keep appreciating. The new assets generate cash flow. They're using other people's money to multiply their wealth. Habit number 3. They control the infrastructure of money. This is the habit they desperately don't want you to understand. Old money families don't just participate in the financial system. They own the infrastructure that controls it. The Rothschild family has controlled central banks for over 200 years. J.P. Morgan Chase, which controls over $3.7 trillion in assets, traces its origins to J.P. Morgan's banking empire. Every major bank has old money families as founding shareholders or major stakeholders. When you control banking infrastructure, you control everything else. You decide who gets loans. You decide interest rates. You decide which businesses succeed. You're making the rules everyone else follows. This is why old money families have profited from every economic crisis. The 2008 financial crisis, J.P. Morgan Chase received $25 billion in bailout money, then used it to acquire Bear Stearns for $2 billion and Washington Mutual's assets for $1.9 billion. They used the crisis to consolidate more market power. The top 4 banks in America control over $9 trillion in assets. That's nearly half of America's GDP controlled by 4 institutions with direct ties to old money families. They don't fear economic downturns. They engineer them. Habit number 4. They never sell, they borrow. This single habit could revolutionize your understanding of wealth. Old money families almost never sell appreciating assets. Instead, they borrow against them. When you sell an asset, you pay capital gains taxes, up to 30% total. When you borrow against an asset, you pay 0 taxes. The asset keeps appreciating. The loan gives you cash to invest. The interest is often tax deductible. The Rockefeller family has been using this strategy for over a century. They borrow against their holdings and use loan proceeds to buy more assets. The original assets keep growing. The new assets generate income. They never pay capital gains taxes. Here's the shocking part. They never pay back the loans. When a loan comes due, they refinance it. The debt gets transferred from generation to generation. Because quality assets appreciate faster than interest accumulates, the family gets richer while carrying massive debt. Elon Musk, worth over $200 billion, pays almost no income taxes. He never sells his Tesla stock. Instead, he borrows against it. In 2021, he borrowed $13 billion against his Tesla shares to buy Twitter. 0 capital gains taxes. The Tesla stock kept appreciating. Some billionaires have debt-to-asset ratios of 50% or higher, yet they're getting richer every year. They've turned debt into a wealth multiplication tool. Habit number 5. They create their own financial infrastructure. Old money families don't just use existing financial institutions. They create their own. Private banks, family offices, investment funds that exist primarily to serve the family's wealth needs. The Rothschild family operates Rothschild & Co., managing over $100 billion in assets. The Rockefellers created Chase Manhattan Bank. The Morgan family built J.P. Morgan & Company. These are the financial infrastructure supporting their wealth ecosystem. When you own financial infrastructure, you control capital flow. You can lend to yourself at favorable rates. You can structure deals benefiting your other investments. You can see economic trends before they become public. You're not a customer, you're an owner. When you own banks, you have access to information others don't. You see who's borrowing and why. You see which industries are growing. You see economic data before public release. Information is power, and financial institutions are information machines. In 2007, Goldman Sachs was selling mortgage-backed securities to clients while betting against those same securities. They had inside information about the coming crisis because they were creating the products that would fail. They made billions while clients lost billions. Habit number 6. They shape government policy. Let's be honest about this. Old money families don't just influence politics. They write policy and control regulatory agencies. The revolving door between government and old money interests ensures their influence continues regardless of political party. The Federal Reserve Act of 1913 was largely written by representatives of old money families meeting secretly on Jekyll Island, Georgia. They literally wrote legislation giving them control over America's money supply. When you can shape government policy, you create massive advantages for your investments while creating barriers for competitors. Need infrastructure built? Get government subsidies. Want to eliminate competition? Get regulations favoring your businesses. Need access to natural resources? Get exclusive government rights. The Rothschilds financed both sides of the Napoleonic Wars and made fortunes regardless of who won. The Rockefellers used government connections to break up competitors through antitrust actions while protecting their own monopolies. Today, old money families fund think tanks writing policy papers. They endow university chairs training future policymakers. They fund political campaigns. They hire former government officials. The revolving door ensures their interests are protected. Since 1913, the US dollar has lost over 96% of its purchasing power. But old money families haven't lost wealth. They've gained it. They own assets that benefit from currency debasement while everyone else holds the debasing currency. Habit number 7, they think in centuries, not quarters. This separates old money from everyone else. These families don't make decisions based on quarterly earnings or annual returns. They make decisions based on what will benefit the family system 100 years from now. This century-level thinking allows them to make moves that seem insane short-term, but are brilliant long-term. They'll hold assets through decades of poor performance because they understand multi-generational trends. The Rothschilds bought gold throughout the 20th century, when everyone considered it obsolete. They accumulated it quietly for decades. When the Bretton Woods system collapsed in 1971, and gold soared from $35 to over $800 per ounce, their patient accumulation paid off massively. The Rockefellers invested heavily in oil when it was primarily used for kerosene lamps. They saw potential for automobiles and industrial applications decades before they became reality. By the time oil became the foundation of the modern economy, they already controlled the infrastructure. This century-level thinking extends to everything. The trusts they establish are designed to last forever. The businesses they build are structured for perpetual operation. The political relationships they cultivate span decades. They're building wealth systems for descendants not yet born. The mathematical reality of wealth concentration. The wealth concentration statistics are staggering. In 1976, the top 1% controlled 19% of total wealth. Today, they control over 32%. The top 0.1%, about 130,000 families, control over 20% of total wealth. The top 400 families in America control more wealth than the bottom 150 million Americans. The Walton family alone has more wealth than the bottom 42% of Americans combined. 6 Walmart heirs have more wealth than 130 million Americans. Compare that to typical families. Median household net worth is about $121,000, mostly tied up in their home. 40% of Americans can't handle a $400 emergency. 78% live paycheck to paycheck. The system concentrates wealth at the top while keeping everyone else financially stressed. The hidden wealth transfer mechanism. All 7 habits work together as a system that automatically transfers wealth from the bottom, 99%, to the top, 1%. When times are good, their assets appreciate faster than wages. When times are bad, they buy distressed assets while everyone else sells. They've structured their wealth to be anti-fragile. Economic chaos helps them. Market crashes concentrate their wealth. Political upheaval creates opportunities for more control. The 2008 financial crisis proves this. While middle-class families lost $16 trillion in wealth, the top 1% increased their wealth by $8 trillion through strategic purchases and government bailouts. The crisis transferred wealth systematically from the bottom 99% to the top 1%. The coming $84 trillion wealth transfer. We're heading into the biggest wealth transfer in human history. Over the next 20 years, $84 trillion will change hands as baby boomers pass away. This wealth won't be distributed evenly. It will be concentrated among families understanding these 7 habits. The families thinking in centuries have been preparing for decades. They've positioned themselves to acquire assets when forced selling drives prices down. They've built financial infrastructure to handle massive capital flows. They've established political relationships, ensuring favorable tax treatment. Most American families are completely unprepared. They don't have trust structures to preserve wealth across generations. They don't have investment systems to grow wealth systematically. They don't have political connections to protect their interests. When the transfer happens, there'll be sellers transferring their inheritance to the same old money families. What this means for your financial future. You can't replicate their system exactly. You don't have their capital, connections, or political influence. But you can apply their principles on a smaller scale and position yourself to benefit from the coming wealth transfer instead of being a victim. Focus on building systems that generate wealth over decades. Buy things that produce income and appreciate over time. Learn to borrow against assets instead of selling them. Think about your family's financial future across multiple generations. Understand that the game is rigged in favor of old money families. If you're playing by the rules they've taught everyone else, you're playing a losing game. You need to understand their rules and adapt them while you still have time. The crisis opportunity window. Economic crises create the greatest wealth-building opportunities for those prepared. The 2008 crisis, the COVID crash, the coming economic reset, these are wealth redistribution mechanisms transferring assets from the unprepared to the prepared. When assets crash, old money families buy aggressively. When businesses fail, they acquire them at discount prices. When people are forced to sell, they're ready to purchase with cash. You can position yourself similarly, but you need to prepare now. Build cash reserves and credit facilities. Identify assets you want to buy when prices collapse. Structure your finances so you can take advantage of opportunities instead of being forced to sell at the worst time. Conclusion: the choice that will define your family's future. The 7 habits I've revealed today are the active blueprint for how real wealth is built, preserved, and concentrated. Old money families have used these strategies for centuries to maintain and grow their wealth through every crisis. You won't hear these strategies from financial advisors because they threaten the commission-based system. You won't learn them in business school because schools are funded by families who benefit from keeping these secrets hidden. You won't see them in mainstream media because media is owned by corporations these families control. But now you know the truth. What are you going to do with this knowledge? Are you going to keep playing by their rules or start building your own wealth preservation system using their methods? Time is running out. The economic reset is coming. The $84 trillion wealth transfer is beginning. When it accelerates, there will be 2 types of people: those who understand how old money operates and those who don't. Those who understand will profit from the chaos. Those who don't will become victims. The old money families are already positioned. They've been preparing for decades, following the same 7 habits their ancestors used through every crisis in history. The only question is whether you'll join the wealth builders or remain among the wealth transferers. Which type of person are you going to be? The choice you make in the next few months will determine your family's financial future for generations to come.